G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dill, and we're the Fantasy Bros. We're back again, partnering with GameDay Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. Dill, it's Wednesday, you know what that means. Team lists have dropped and it's time to take a deep dive into our round 15 GDS squads. The second big buy is here, and with lots of players also out on Origin duty, this show will be super important. We'll be searching for plenty of pods and some players we probably normally wouldn't consider starting. Before we get into all of that, how did you go last week in round 14?
Yeah, g'day, mate. G'day, viewers and listeners. It's a bit of chaos at the moment with some of those team lists, so hopefully we can find a couple of pods and a couple of gems. Yep, round 14, I had a 15th and starter, so I did something a little bit different. I just wanted to see what would happen if I played all of the top averaging players available for the round. And I did that in starter and I came out with a 15th. So once again, I think it's proving that it's not necessarily having the best players in your squad, but finding a bit of edge over the competition in terms of some of those matchup stats and maybe finding a pod here or there. So I was pretty happy with the results in terms of that little study that I did. In terms of results elsewhere in the competition, there was no top 20s again for me, unfortunately. A couple of disappointing runs from some of our key players that we're looking at in terms of Ito and obviously Hopper there had a bit of a knockout blow early, which a lot of coaches struggled with. I'm about 200 points off 15th overall in Classic, and you and I were having a conversation before, and that's kind of my aim at the moment. Still a long way to go in the season, but across all the other top 10s in the competitions, there's an opportunity there for someone to finish 15th overall in Classic and still be eligible for a prize card in that prize card draft. So that's sort of my objective now. Obviously, the Classic Cup is here as well, starting next week. So I think all eyes and my attention in particular is moving to that Classic competition. How'd you go, mate?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, there's still a lot to play for so many people, whether they're at the top of those leaderboards, whether they're focusing now on that Classic Cup, or even the brand new contender competition that we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit of time as well. But, mate, similar story for me. No finishes inside the top 20 for one of the first times in some time for me. So it was a bit of a blow to the ego. But, yeah, look, it was tough after that Lehigh Hopewadi injury within the sort of the first 10 minutes. Damien Cook then spent almost an entire match in the centres, did nothing except for catch a cold out there. And then it was Kale Iro that thankfully he scored before he exited the field with that injury, but that certainly impacted a lot of coaches there as well. But only dropped the one spot. I think a lot of other coaches struggled too. Dropped the one spot in the overall challenger competition. So that's still where I'm focusing a lot of my time and effort to make sure I get that high prize card pick. So third at the moment, but hoping to climb back up in the second. So not all doom and gloom, but definitely keen to bounce back this week. So really important show we've got tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And just talking about Cookie catching a cold on the in the centres there, it looks like some of our viewers have been battling the cold as well. Sif Kang here felt like he had COVID on Saturday and Sunday, so he's pretty much been bedridden, but now feeling a lot better just in time for the Fantasy Bros show and the kickoff to round 15. Melissa was giving him some advice there as well around the chicken noodle soup and rest and plenty of water. Good on you, Melissa, helping out some of the viewers there as well. If you want to join us, please feel free to add your comments, questions, or just a bit of banter about some of our players that we pick. I know there's a couple of little gems in here potentially, but there's some left field pods that we're going to talk about as well. And I think the viewers might be happy to give us a bit of rubbish for some of the options that we might talk about today. But yep, as always, we talk about some of the success we have. You're sitting that nice and pretty in that third, fourth spot there on Challenger and looking to move up. So obviously we continue to have some success across a range of competitions. So if you want to get some of those expert tips, make sure you're joining us every Wednesday night, particularly next week. We have a massive show next week. This one is our 49th show together as the Fantasy Bros. Next week is our 50th, so we'll have to do something fairly special for that one. Make sure that you are following along. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Fantasy Bros AU if you haven't already done so that you do not miss anything else from us. We also have our socials running. So besides YouTube, we've got TikTok and Instagram happening as well. Check us out on @FantasyBros AU. Plus, we are on the GDS Discord. at all times so that we can post as much as possible throughout the week and leading into the games an hour before kickoff. So make sure you are following us for all of that content, as well as plenty of card giveaways. I think we'll have to do something massive next week again. And we often have some players, pods of the round players up as well on our Insta and TikTok. So you don't want to miss those because they have been absolutely killing it. Not to mention my pod call of Jerome Hughes last week went off.
And how many squads did you play him in?
Absolutely zero. Yep.
It's a late change.
Wouldn't even take my own advice. Tough.
Yeah, that's right. If anyone in the comment section has an idea for what we can do for our 50th show next week, let us know, whether it's, some giveaways, some games, whatever it might be. A lot of you in the comments tonight have been with us, for the last 15 weeks, really, and even into before this rugby league season as well. So let us know if you've got any ideas, and we'll put our collective heads together for that 50th show. Look, it's certainly still not too late for anyone to get involved. It's not too late for you to get your friends involved either. There's actually a really nice promotion running at the moment for GameDay Squad if you can get your mates involved. You need to double check on the Discord server or the help notes section on the GameDay Squad page. But I'm pretty sure you and a friend can receive a 9-player unique pack simply for registering them this week in the lead up to the kickoff of the brand new contender competition. So look, if you are a new player and you just stumbled across our video, or you've got keen to get involved and you haven't signed up yet, you can certainly do so using our code on screen there. It's FBRL25. In doing so, you'll get 3 9-player common packs, and that's about $20 worth of value or more. You'll get plenty of cards to get started that can go straight into that contender competition. But yeah, if you're sitting in the comments and you've got a few friends that are keen to get involved, but they haven't yet started, perfect opportunity to this week. Just double check what those rules are around the referral. I think if they get registered using the KYC and you reach out to Cal or Tom on the Discord, I think you both get a 9-player unique pack, which is a cracking deal, and it's only going to bring more people to the community, which is awesome. Have I got that right, Dill?
Yeah, that's right. The 9-player unique, and that's a $50 pack right there just for referring someone. So definitely an opportunity. Plus, they can use our code. They get some packs as well. You can put in your referral code, and there's plenty of opportunities there to gain some packs between you all. Just on that as well, we're going to talk about the contender competition in a moment. Please feel free to hit us up at any time if you are looking for particular cards or you need something extra. If you are a new player this season, we're more than happy to help you out so that you have some decent cards to get started with those squads. So yeah, let us know if you're on the Discord. Just hit us up on Discord, and we're happy to try and help you out where we can.
Awesome. So you want to briefly talk about the contender comp then, Dill, since
definitely
brought that up?
Yeah, so last week we did talk about the 2 new competitions that are starting. The first one is the Contender Cup. So it is kicking off this week across all of the sports, so the AFL and NRL that is currently in progress. It is free to play and then obviously free to win. Perfect for those new players and the rookie coaches. The big key for us is that the Contender Cup, if you are already a seasoned veteran in GameDay Squad, you are likely to be playing in the Challenger and Champion competitions, which means that you are ineligible for the Contender. So it's a perfect opportunity for someone that is new or has just started in GameDay Squad to start building some of those cards and some of their bank to then expand those cards and move into one of those Challenger or Championship competitions as we move forward. So a really good opportunity for new players. There is a salary cap of 10 million, but you can use from bronze to gold cards, and there are no special cards available to be used. So no prize cards, all-stars, etc. that give that added bonus to some of those teams. So definitely an opportunity for new players to get involved and become the number 1 contender in GameDay Squad.
And not only is it a really good chance for new players to win and see their names on the leaderboard, but there are some pretty good prizes available for the contender competition as well. First gets 3 9-player unique packs and a 2025 All-Star player card. Right down to 100th gets a 3-player common pack. Sorry, yeah, that's 100th. 3-player common pack. So pretty easy there to, if you get a full team locked in, very high chance to get a 3-player common pack at the very least between rounds 15 and 27. There's another 30 or 40 cards to build out that portfolio ready for next season as well.
Yeah, definitely. Great opportunity. And something that I think probably be important, and obviously it depends where coaches want to go and what they've got so far, but it might be an opportunity for some of those newer coaches that have sort of been around for 6 months, a year, or brand new tonight to potentially look at loading up some of their better players in that contender competition. Because if they go to Classic or something like that, there are opportunities for players to use some of those special cards, which do give that added multiplier. So if you are new, maybe the contender is straight in there for you, and play your better cards there and some of your better rarities in that competition.
So the advice might be, if you're just putting in a challenger team for the sake of it, but not really competing or doing very well, best idea is to clear that squad entirely and just put in your contender squad and then your classic squad. But next week, pretty exciting. You took out the very first GDS Starter Cup, and given that was so successful, the boys are running it back now with a Classic Cup. So it'll be the classic format with a bit of a salary cap, one special card, and all other tiers of cards can be used. So a bit more strategy comes into play when we're not just using the bronze cards. But as of next week, you and Ideal will be focusing more on our teams heading in towards the Classic Cup. So we're talking a bit more about rarities and where we're going to put some more of our salary towards different positions and better players and that sort of thing to try to gain a bit of a tactical advantage. But the top 512 coaches by the end of this round will compete in that tournament. It's a knockout style match where knockout style tournament where all matches are randomized. You don't need to do anything apart from fill out your GDS Classic team, and the GDS boys will put the fixtures together and then post the winners each week and tell you who you're playing next. So can't wait to see one of us match up with someone in the comments. That'll be pretty fun for sure. And wouldn't it be great for one of the people in the comments to knock you or I off?
I think last week Mel said, wouldn't it be great if JT and I played off in the first round, so one of us was knocked out straight away, and that would be unreal as well. Melissa there straight away jumping on and asking how you think you're going to go in Classic, Stu. So she's obviously just bypassed me completely. She doesn't care about me and my winning record. She just wants to know how you're going to go.
Well, I think you've done all you can do so far in the GDS Cup realm, and it's me that's got a bit to prove now. I'm above you in just about all of the leaderboards, but you're the one that's holding the trophy so far this season. So, yeah, you've had your time to shine, Melissa. It's Stu's time to shine. It's all about me this tournament. Let's just hope I don't get matched up with JT or Dill early on.
She's backtracked. I love it, Mel. She said Stu and Dill. Good. Yeah. Alrighty. Obviously, round 15, we've got a lot happening. There's buys. There's a lot going on. There's also those Queensland versus New South Wales commitments. So on the buy, we have the Broncos, Panthers, Eels, Raiders, Warriors, Storm, and Tigers. So there's a lot of unreal quality players there. Just a few of them to name: Val Holmes, Tino Fasua-Mala'awi, Callum Ponga, Hammer, and Latrell Mitchell are going to be missing from our squads this week as well. So we've got a bit of soul searching to do, a bit of deep digging, and a deep dive into some of the squads this week. And hopefully people have some of these cards that we're going to talk about. Let's kick it off with Hooker. And I think it's one of those things where we just are probably going to look at running it back. We've got some names up there on the screen that we probably haven't seen before in the show. As you said last week, Cook just threw one back at us and said, I've been having some unreal games, but it's time for me to just bide my time out in the centres like a young bloke and just do one for the team. So unfortunately that cooked us last week in our teams, but where are you going this week for your hooker spot?
Yeah, we spoke about how fortuitous it had been for Cook in that Dragons outfit, where a middle forward had gone down just about every single match for the last month, it seemed. And he seemed to benefit from that every match. And we're just waiting to see what the rotation actually looks like between him and Little. But if a forward kept going down and Cook benefited as a result, then we were more than happy to keep him in our team and enjoy the points. A player went down, but it wasn't a forward. Unfortunately, it was an outside back. A whole reshuffle occurred, and Cookie found himself out there in the centre. He actually sort of caught the ball once or twice and had a fraction of space in front of him where an elite centre like Farnworth or someone might have really capitalised and taken advantage. But that space was quickly closed down. Cookie's legs are get a little bit older now, and I was sort of, half creeping off the chair about to celebrate that he'd have a half respectable score. But no, lo and behold, that space was closed down pretty quickly, and he sort of just went to ground and got maybe, half a point for 5 running meters or something instead of, a dominant center out there probably could have capitalized and scored a try. I'm not going to go back to Cookie this week just because that's the possibility. Also, the Dragons have 4 middles on their bench. They've sort of been playing that edge forward on the bench as well, but they don't really have that out-and-out edge forward. Looks like both edges are likely going to get 80 minutes this round, meaning there's going to be plenty of rotation through the middle. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cookie off the field with Little into that number 9. So, look, the hook has been a poison position for a lot of us all season long. I'm going back to the well. Look, Blake Brayley hasn't been amazing in the last month, really only 30s and 40-point scores. But look, we know he's going to play 80 minutes. His team's heavily favoured this round. They're playing against that Dragons team that conceded 50 last week. He's going to run the ball a bit. He's going to make plenty of tackles, and he's every chance of, putting a middle forward over close to the line or throwing that last pass to, a crafty outside back to dart over and score. So I don't love it. It's not going to be amazing. It's Blake Brayley for me at the moment. And let me know who yours is so that we can move on to the next position.
Yeah, just on Blake Brayley, he comes up against the Dragons tomorrow night to kick off the round, actually. And the Dragons have been really good, actually, at limiting opposition hookers this season, currently allowing less than 30 points to opposition hookers per game. That is the only team in the competition that has restricted hookers to less than 30. Everyone else above is allowing 30 or more. So I'm going to actually look somewhere else, and I'm going to go with JMK. He came back from injury last week against the Dragons, had 66 minutes, so he's coming back from injury. Probably not the minutes we wanted to see, but he has had games of 80, 76, 71, and 69 this season. And as he moves sort of towards that 70-minute plus mark, I'd be happy with his output. So if we can see that again, I'm really keen to play him. During those games that I listed, the 4 games there of around that 70, he's nudging 50 GDS points in average, which is actually above Blake Brayley's current average of 45. So, Blake is doing that 45 in 80 minutes, whereas JMK is sort of getting his work done within around that 70-minute mark. So I'm going to go with JMK in the hope that he might get that 70 minutes plus and return a decent score of around 50 points. I'm going to be pretty happy with that. But just before we move on, Jay Boney, welcome back again, mate. Thank you for joining us. He's asked no Reed Marnie, and the reason that Reed Marnie is not listed on there because he's actually one of my potential pods of the week. He comes up against the Rabbitohs. There's not a lot of change in the Bulldogs side. They've only really lost Max King, although we will talk about a potential second loss a little bit later on. But Reed Marnie up against the Rabbitohs, who allow the most points to hookers in the competition of 40.6 GDS points per game. So I think Reed Marnie has a really good opportunity to nudge past that. And the scary thing or the nervous thing I'd be worried about is Bailey Hayward sitting on the bench there and whether he comes in and what he does for Reed Marnie's minutes. But I think he could be a definite potential pod for the week. Jane, Bernie, so make sure you potentially put him in your side if you think he's going to have a big game.
Yeah, we saw, the introduction of Lockie Galvin last week. Reed Marnie sort of drew the short straw there, and he was the one that suffered in terms of minutes, and it looks like that's going to be a theme moving forward. Reed Marnie's sort of been on the outer, and he was a little bit, left to himself and seemed a little bit despondent there at the end of the match after he'd, been taken from the field before the 60-minute mark. So it's probably just a sign of things to come for Reed over the next couple of weeks. This week, might be a one-off, but one thing I always am hesitant to start Reed Marnie on is due to those missed tackles. Now, he's made 50 missed tackles, which is 20 more than Blake Brayley, and Blake Brayley's played a match extra as well. So when you convert that to, -3 for a missed tackle, that's an extra 60 points in demerits in one less game, simply for falling off his tackles. And Blake Brayley's no saint. He still missed 30 himself, but that's a lot different to the 50 that Reed Marnie has missed. And for those playing at home, the top missed tackler at the moment is Apisai Coruscant with 55.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, we've talked too much about hookers. Let's move on. Middles. Well, Middles is an absolute disgusting look this week, unfortunately, and I don't know how else to explain it. I think at one point you had Matt Croker potentially in your thoughts, and if we're getting that low, there is really something wrong. And I think at one point I even looked at Saifidi. So yeah, we're getting a bit nervous here about our middles, but I think for the first time this season, I'm just going to run the 3 middles. Usually we talk about running 4 or 5 with the forward bench spots, but I'm definitely only running 3 based on sort of what we see in front of us, where we're going to the well in terms of Victor Radley being up on the screen at the moment. And I don't know anyone that would want to play Victor Radley knowing that he will probably get sin binned and have 6 or 7 penalties go against him. So for me, I think it's just a pretty easy one at the moment with a potential pod in there. But I'll probably play Adam Fanua-Blake and Josh Curran, and then look at maybe either McInnes or maybe that pod in White. Where are you looking sort of the same thing? Where are you going with your middles?
Yeah, very similar. I will just let you know, your head must be in all sorts if you're looking at a Saifidi. None of the brothers have been named this round. I think they're both out injured. But that just shows you how desperate we are to look for a suitable middle replacement. Yeah, look, I like AFB. He hasn't been amazing this year. He still had 3 scores over 70. The Dragons concede points all over the park. He's just as likely to crash over as anyone else. So he seems to be pretty safe. That derby between, the Sharks and the Dragons is always pretty fiery, and he'll be the man to sort of stand up there and put the team on his shoulders. He's been playing some big minutes recently, so yeah, no real hesitation in starting AFB, although he's sort of not hitting those heights that we really expected when he moved to the Sharks. Joshy Curran's been fantastic. He played 80 minutes starting at prop in round 12, where he scored a 77. Not expecting him to play the full 80, but they've obviously got a few forwards out there, and particularly middle forwards, so there's every chance he can go the distance again. But he only needs 60 or 65 minutes to put up a really nice GDS score. So really happy to play those two. It just, it does come down to that third position. No disrespect to Scrambled Legs, mate. We know Scrambled Legs is a friend of ours from work, and he's actually playing Victor Radley. But I think that's because he's only new this season and he doesn't have the amount of cards that we have. So he's actually running out a Victor Radley bronze there in his starter competition, I'm pretty sure, until he obviously tunes in and makes some changes quick smart. I do like Cam McInnes for the potential that he can play some big minutes. It's just really weird how the Sharks have been using their middle forwards in the minutes that they're playing. It's never really consistent. He's played some big minute games, but also, some really low to mid 50 minutes. And he typically works along at 1 ppm. He doesn't really offer too much in attack, although he has scored once or twice this season. But, if he gets the minutes, 60, 65, he's going to get a really nice, healthy, top high 50s, low 60s score. It's just uncertainty about the minutes. So I'm actually leaning to Nafahu White, and I can see Sif Kanga is there as well. I think he might go a little bit under the radar for some coaches, given that he's been out for an extended period of time. He comes back at a great time, particularly when, the Roosters, a lot of their forward pack is out, through origin duty. So hopefully he's recovered well from his injury. Hopefully he hasn't been just pushed back into the team just because they're desperate for some forwards. But before he was injured, he was playing some really nice footy, and he's only going to get better and better. So, as a third forward, there's probably some upside in playing a White, but I see a bit more safety in a McInnes or even a Jack de Belin, who had some really nice scores playing 60 minutes starting at lock earlier on this season.
Yeah. And just on AFB and McInnes, in terms of where points are scored through the middles in particular, the Dragons give up 34.2 to all middles this season so far. But if we filter that by starting middles, that increases to 46.5. And then they're also allowing 38% of their tries through the middle of the field compared to left or right. So there's definite upside there for both Fanua-Blake and McInnes, who, as you said, McInnes not usually known for his try-scoring ability, but has dotted over the last couple of times, I think in the last 5 weeks. But I think for me, and again, another potential pod, and I think we're going to have almost a pod in every position, I think, is that man White. And you look at the Roosters and who they've lost. They've lost Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, Lindsay Collins, and then Spencer Leniu as well, all from that forward pack. And that rotation at the moment is sort of looking at Sandon Smith, Docker Clay, Steep, and Nat Butcher off the bench. So I think there's definite potential for White to play some big minutes, and with that skinny rotation there, and in games where he's played 50 plus minutes, he's averaged 55 GDS points. So you take that PPM any day of the week compared to someone like a Victor Radley potentially that that might have a bit of a brain snap or might lose some demerits there. So I think I might be leaning towards White the more that I look at it. So running maybe the Adam Fanua-Blake, Curran and White combination similar to Sifkanger. I think that's a good opportunity there.
Yeah, nice. He had a nice big 60 and 70 point score back in round 3 and 4, playing about that 55 to 57 minutes. So, yeah, there's every chance that he plays 60 or, he's called upon as, one of the more experienced players in such a small forward pack. And, yeah, with Sandon Smith on the bench as well. And probably spending a bit of time at hooker with Sammy Walker starting. Who knows? He only got through 40 minutes last week. Quite an interesting makeup for that Roosters team, and White certainly may be a benefactor. So a great time to jump on someone like him. He's obviously one of the newer players. Some people might not necessarily have those cards, but there are a few other options there on the board, particularly in McInnes and DeBellin. Middles aren't that exciting, mate. You want to spend a bit more time talking about some edges? I think we're going to go hard on the bench and play a few extra edges this week.
Yeah, there's a lot of options this week, and probably the most options of any position at the moment, I think, in terms of what we've got available for the edges. And you look at those players just on the screen there, and there's 6 quality players that I think is a difficult conversation to pick who you're going to play. Not to mention someone missing from that. Was named yesterday as Preston back from injury as well. So I think there's plenty of options for coaches. I think the first player that I would hope that serious GDS coaches are looking at is Kalonga-Matangi. The work rate that he's putting in. I said it last week that he was a must-have, and he had 9 minutes less on the field against the Raiders this week, but had 8 more tackles than the previous week against the Warriors. So he's also on a try-scoring upside of 2 on the trot as well. So I think playing close to 80 minutes in the middle, tackling his butt off, and then a few extra running meters, that the tackle breaks have sort of remained with the upside of a try. I think there's no way you wouldn't play him. And that's similar to Couchman, I think, as well. I know we've seen him move from that middle role into back onto the edge, but he's now kind of sewed up that 80 minutes edge spot for the Dragons, and I really like it. The last 2 weeks, he's averaged 60 points compared to his 55 previously playing in the middle. Obviously his PPM's decreased slightly, which is expected for most edges that are actually playing on the edge. But I expect him to still do some great things on the field with that upside. Playing 80 based on what we know he can do, whether that's tackling, eating up those meters, those run meters, and then also the tackle break ability as well. I think that's improved since moving to the edge. He's notched up 7 tackle breaks in the last 2 games compared to averaging sort of just over 1 through the middle. So I think for me, Kalonga-Matangi and Couchman are the definites. From there, we've got a sort of pick your favourites players based on their matchups, where you could go with a Lucas Preston combination, a Preston Olakuatu combination, or even a Kai Pearce-Paul in there as well. Firma obviously wasn't named for the Queensland side, so he's an opportunity. He gets an opportunity back with the Titans as well. I think for me at the moment, I'm not going to play Lucas this week. I'm going to look at Preston and Olakuatu as my other 2 on the bench and play the full 4 edges this week. I just think Olakuatu probably has that upside up against the Titans. We know that Titans love to give up some points. They allow 49.1 GDS points to right edges, which is the highest average to the opposition of all of those teams playing. He's also got DCE with him. He's got Turbo back. Garrick's there. Saab's outside. So I think that right side could be pretty dangerous. And then Preston, he returns from injury this week against the Rabbits, and he'll line up on the right side of the field, I think. And there's going to be some question marks over who plays inside of him. So, that could be a watch and wait as well. I think I would prefer Galvin to play inside of him, but I don't know whether that's going to be the case, what that's going to look like. So we'll just have to see what that halves pairing does in Galvin and Sexton. But look, the Doggies are up against the South Sydney, who love to give up points across the park anyway. It doesn't really matter where it is. And right edges, to that right edge side, they've allowed an average of 48.8 GDS points, which is 10 more to the other side. So again, I think Preston will have a massive game, and let's just hope that whichever half is inside of him, they dominate possession of the ball, and they want that ball as often as possible in their hands.
Yeah, it really is quite interesting there, the makeup with the Doggies, whether they put Galvin on the right and see him as a long-term right half alongside Burton there on the left. If Sexton's going to stay in the team long-term, and maybe Burton moves to, they've got a few options really. And I guess they'll show their hand this weekend against the Rabbitohs there. But that if he's combining there with Jacob Preston, look, he turned Sione what was his name? Sione from the Tigers into a a pretty deadly left edge there. Galvin with a couple of short balls and some offloads and that sort of thing. And since Galvin's left, he hasn't done a lot there at the Tigers. So, Preston playing outside him would be amazing. And Preston will be in my team on Sunday. And the two other locks in there are definitely Koloamatangi and Couchman. They're the sort of guys that are going to get you a really nice solid score, but it'll be Preston and Haumole Olakau'atu for me, who I'm looking at, not just their points, but certainly some high upside and some ceiling as well. Olakau'atu's got the most tackle breaks for any edge forward in the game, and he's soaring ahead. He's about 10 or 12 clear of the next best in Hutto Young. He's only scored the 5 tries for the season, so there's plenty of wiggle room there to score a few more tries. And like you said, he's got a dream matchup there against the Titans. Their forward pack is depleted. Cherry Evans comes back. Cherry Evans will have a point to prove. It's one of the best right edges in the competition. Everything's sort of lining up for another big game from Olakau'atu. And the weather's been pretty nice in Brizzy. It should be a nice fast on the Gold Coast and in Queensland. It should be a pretty nice track there on Friday night. And I can see plenty of points being scored there. Melissa has asked about Ewan Aiken, and I see him as a fine selection. He's not too dissimilar to Toby Couchman, I guess. He gets through his tackles a lot. He works really well. The probably two negatives are that he has been hampered by injury a lot over recent seasons, and he sort of clutches, at a neck, at a back, at a leg, every few runs, and you sort of bite your fingernails and you think, is he going to get up and keep playing for me? But he's also a guy that moves out into the centres pretty frequently as well if there's an outside back, and we know that can really minimalise someone's points, particularly a forward who gets a lot of base points just through their work if they're shifted out to the edge there. So those are the two potential knocks for me. Whereas a lot of those other players there, they're the go-to ball runners out wide for their team, and a lot of traffic gets directed toward them, and they break plenty of tackles, and they don't really typically move too often into the centres apart from that man Dylan Lucas. So he's probably the man that misses out for me, so that I can play Couchman, Olakau'atu, Koloamatangi, and Jacob Preston. But it's just because of that bit of a shoulder complaint. He's been nursing it the last couple of weeks. He's certainly got some massive upside. He actually went off in that previous big buy round. So I'm a bit hesitant to see if, we all expected the Knights to go pretty poorly against the Panthers that night. But him and Sharp, they were just incredible. So there's every chance he goes off. So he'll be in one or two of my squads. But I'm looking for a bit of upside in addition to the Koloamatangi and Couchman safety picks.
Yeah, and just on Ewan Aitken, he the last 4 games he has averaged 63, which is well above what he's been averaging before then in the previous 4 or 5 games. But you're right, it does come down to probably that upside. The other players just probably have just that little bit more upside, as well as the matchup. He's coming up against the Doggies, and the Doggies are pretty good at defence at the moment. And there's a reason why they're top of the table is because of their defence. They're only allowing 35.5 to both sides of the field in terms of edges. So I just don't quite see Aitken being given that, free reign and that opportunity to score big. The reason why I liked Aitken so much last season was because you could play him in your centres, but he was playing second row. And like you said, when that happens the other way on the flip side, where you play him in your edge forward position, but he's playing out in the centres, I just don't think there's any upside there to it. And he would be the first player to go and fill in, in the centres. If a winger went down, I think that it opens up a little bit for that player in particular. So for me, the other players you touched on was Lucas, and he comes up against the Roosters. Obviously, they're depleted, but the right edge defensive pairing are probably going to be Dom Young and Nawaka Nituaze, and they've only missed between them 1.2 and 0.9 tackles on average per game, respectively. So the reason why I like Lucas so much usually is because of his tackle break ability. And in that Panthers game, he had 10 tackle breaks. I just don't know if he's going to have that opportunity against those two. They seem to be, a bit better when they're defending on that side. So, I think for me, the upside of Lucas is probably lost a little bit in that big matchup. So, I'm happy to go elsewhere. But again, it'll be another one of those players that he could easily go off, and we'll be pretty annoyed at ourselves for not just going, pick and stick with Lucas. But yeah, I think for me, like we said, those players have a bit more upside, a bit more opportunity, and they look a bit more settled, I think, than someone like Lucas, who's a bit more injury prone at the moment, and Aitken, who probably just doesn't quite have that attacking upside.
Yep, like a mate. Beautiful. How about the halves for this round? What are you laughing about? What have we got down there? Lockie Galvin.
Who's that bloke down there? Lockie Galvin and his best mate. I love it.
So what's tell us what Lockie Galvin's card will look like on game day, Scott. Will we be able to play him this round if we choose to?
I think so. So I think you could still play him. At the moment, he'll still have the Tigers logo on his card. You will be able to play him. And from my understanding is there's no way that you could potentially make a little cheeky swap because GDS takes a snapshot of your squad at the start of each game. So even though his player card could potentially be unlocked for the whole round because the Tigers technically don't play, that would be an opportunity there potentially for someone to sort of create a loophole. We think that won't be able to happen because of the way that the GDS collect their data. So the other thing is that they play last in the round, so it's a bit difficult to try and weasel your way into anything anyway.
Yeah.
Does not matter. But yeah, as far as I understand, the Tigers card of Lachlan Galvin would still count towards your score if you played it. I will have to double check that, but he was listed as a Bulldog in the stats center last week, the match center, last week. So it does come up as he's a Tiger, but he was listed in the Bulldogs game. So yeah, if anyone was concerned, that hopefully will put your mind at ease. But yeah, as far as I understand, you would be able to get his points if you wanted to play Lockie Galvin. And I think he's a perfectly good opportunity for him to score some points.
Yeah, so likely more of a visual inconsistency rather than an actual stats keeping or data issue. So yeah, if you want to play Galvin, you can. Mate, I see 3 spots out of 4 options for my 3 spots this round, and it just means one of Isaiah Katoa, Jaden Campbell, Nicho Hines, or Dally Cherry Evans will miss out. I see those 4, as 4 clear ahead in the halves position this round, and I'm sort of bouncing between 2 or 3 of them as the one that I'm going to leave out. How about we start with you and which way you're leaning? If you can talk me into who I should be leaving out of those 4, because we obviously can't play all of them.
Yeah. I guess Izzy Katoa is probably almost my lock, I think, for this. I think between the 3 or 4 options, Izzy Katoa and probably Jaden Campbell are my sort of the 2 that I'm leaning that I'll definitely be going with. Katoa just seems to be racking up points through those base stats of kicking, running, tackles. And then he's also got that attacking upside of try assist as well. He's averaging almost 1 try assist per game this season, on top of his almost 50 points in base from those stats that I just mentioned. So he's definitely got a massive upside there. And he matches up against a semi-depleted Cowboys. I wouldn't say they're overly depleted, but some of their big players, in Robson and Dearden are going to be missing. And I think there's an opportunity there for Izzy Katoa to just sort of run riot on that team. And we know that the Cowboys allow an average of 40 points to left halves, which is sort of similar across both sides of the field. So I think, Izzy Katoa is probably a lock for this week. And then same with Jaden Campbell. I know that he had a down week last week in a pretty tough game, but he's still averaging 60 GDS points a match. And that's, look, he's potentially got a softer matchup this week against the Sea Eagles as well, who we have talked about. They've got pretty much a full strength side, bar a couple of injuries, but they allow 45.7 GDS points to right halves, and that's 10 less than the others. 10 more than the other side of the field in the left halves there that they allow. So there's definitely an opportunity for Jaden Campbell to go big, and we just hope that it's sort of a high-scoring game down at Seabus Stadium, and they have attacking from both right sides of the field for both teams, because I think we've loaded up on quite a few Sea Eagles today as well. So then I think for me it comes down to do I Nicho or do I not Nicho? And that's the dilemma that I've got. And, probably 3 weeks ago, I would have just locked and loaded in Nicho Hines. But you convinced me last week to get off him, and thank God that I did. He only managed 18.07 GDS points against, and maybe it was because they were facing the Warriors side, and the Warriors team have just been on an absolute roll as of late. But look, he comes up against the Dragons, who may not allow too much as well to that sort of halves position. The Dragons this season allowed an average of only 44 GDS points to right halves, and that's tied second lowest of the teams that are playing this week. So there could be some downside there. Interestingly, though, the pivot option in DCE, he comes up against the Titans, and the Titans also allow only 44 GDS points to right halves. So the stats probably don't help us there too much. It's probably more a vibe thing on, do you think Nico is going to have a big game for the Sharks after having a down game? Or do you think DCE is going to come out and stamp his authority after being dropped as the captain?
Yeah, right. A bit to think about. Look, I do see the right half matchup against the Dragons being pretty favourable, just because last week we saw Cody Nikorima, of all people, score his second 50 of the season. And if Cody Nikorima is scoring a 50, there's no reason why Nicho Hynes can't plot along to a 50 as well, particularly if he's kicking goals. The Dragons just conceded 50. It's really nice when he scores, he kicks, 6 or 8 goals and his score ticks up by 18 or 24 free points. But that's where he really struggled, accumulating those base points in that loss against the Warriors last week and only kicking 1 goal. And his kick meters are down with Trindle doing a lot. So he's not a plug and play anymore like he used to be. But favourable matchups, surely he comes into the equation a lot more. I think I'm going with a lot of people in the comment section here as well. Again, Sif Kanga, we might have some pretty similar teams. He's leaving out Nicho Hynes, and I think that that little bit of a conversation there is, so we don't really need to keep forcing Nicho Hynes into our teams. We've seen that he does have a bit of a flaw. Jaden Campbell didn't have anywhere near a good game as what he's capable of. But we know that, he can score almost just against any team. He scored a nice big score against the Storm in the wet, in a bit of a hiding. And they're probably going to face a really nice, strong Sea Eagles team and probably get defeated again this round. But he can still accumulate points a lot quicker, a lot easier than Nicho Hynes can. So, DCE. We've talked about Olakuatu. We're going to talk about Ruben Garrick. That right-hand side of the field is really good. Look, Daly Cherry-Evans is the type of guy to get out there and play an absolute blinder, just to remind a few people that doubted him, a few people that wrote some pretty choice articles, that he still got it, and he probably really wanted to be in that maroon jersey and try to help Queensland come back into that series. And look, he'll have a big game, then he'll put his feet up and watch Wednesday night, and whichever way that game goes, he'll probably certainly have put plenty of points up for our GameDay squad team on the weekend. So, I'm pretty happy to play him and that combination there with Olakuatu and Garrick. That Titans forward pack looks pretty poor without both Tino and Mo Fotuaika. I think, the forwards for Manly are going to get a bit of a roll on, and Cherry Evans is certainly going to capitalise on the end of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Once again, Jay Boney throwing out some really good pod opportunities here. Sammy Walker returns for the Roosters this week. And as I mentioned, Sandon Smith is the one to lose out. So Hugo Savala remains in that halves pairing. And Sandon Smith, who's had some unreal games this season, he's the one that misses out. So Jay Boney's asking, is Sam Walker an option this week? His first game back since a major injury that saw the 2024 season disappear. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I know why Sandon Smith has been left out and Hugo Savala been retained alongside Sam Walker there in the halves. And it's just because Sam Walker can't kick the footy down the field far enough. They need a half that can have a good, nice, strong kicking game. And Savala's proved he can do that. He's done very little in comparison to Sandon Smith, who's played magnificently. He won an Anzac Day medal. He's played beautifully. He kicks goals cleanly, but he just doesn't have the best general play kicking game. And I think the Roosters think Sammy Walker will be Sam Walker. He'll do a lot of the things Sandon Smith does, and we just need someone with a big enough boot to roost the ball downfield. And I think that's where Sandon Smith has missed out. Look, Jay Boney, to answer your question, mate, not today, not first game back in first grade after a lengthy spell, after only 40 minutes in reserve grade. Sandon Smith is on the bench. He's probably going to come on and play some halfback if Sammy Walker doesn't play the full match. There's every chance they rest him depending on how the score is going. There's every chance he's going to be limited and he might just catch and pass the footy and he won't get too heavily involved. He's certainly going to be someone that we look at and play the back end of the season if the Roosters are making a run for the finals once he's got plenty of games under his belt. But mate, it'd be a brave man to plug a Sammy Walker card into your team, expecting him to outscore, the Jaden Campbells, Cherry Evans. But by all means, it could happen. I just see it very unlikely, and we don't typically take that many risks in our squad. Still, they're more calculated than that. If we do take some risks, and I don't think we need to, and we've got a few really good options there. So. Yeah, not a bad pod play there, Jay Boney. If you roll out a Sammy Walker, good luck to you, mate. I'll be looking for your name on the leaderboard, see if Sammy can get you up there.
And just on the kicking meters and how important it is, Sammy Walker last season averaged 250 kick meters, whereas if we look at DCE this season, he's averaging 436 kicking meters. So you get 1 point for every 30 meters kicked. So those base stats are extremely different. There's a big difference there between Sammy Walker and what DCE can do just in general play kicking and the points that are on the back of that. So if it's a toss-up between DCE and Sam Walker, purely just based off the kicking meters alone, I'd be picking DCE every day of the week. But I think it's probably a good opportunity to remind people that Sammy Walker's back now, so there's a real good opportunity to jump on the marketplace over on the GameDay Squad website or on the app and check out and see if there's any cheap deals on Sam Walker. Some people might not be around the news that he's back, and they might be still trying to offload some cards, so it might be a good opportunity to pick some up now for those 4, 5, 6 weeks down the track. So definitely have a look there.
Beautiful. Round 15 centers, Dill. Pretty straightforward, straight bat for me.
Very straightforward.
This round. Just going to be Herbie Farnworth and Ruben Garrick. There's a temptation to look at a Jackson Purdue, but I think the Dolphins are going to win and win well up there in North Queensland. I've got a couple of stats to back that up a little bit later on, maybe in the next position. But yeah, Herbie Farnworth, Ruben Garrick for me. Farnworth are just about a lock any week of the competition. And in a bye week where there's 6 teams on bye and a number of players out through Origin, look, Herbie Farnworth is an absolute lock. Ruben Garrick, again, teams up there with Cherry Evans and Olakwatu. We're playing both of them, so it makes sense to force him into the lineup as well. Even if he's not scoring a try because they're being scored inside him, then he's going up in threes when he's kicking goals off the tee. So, yeah, really confident to play both of those two players. If you didn't have a Herbie or a Garrett card or a high rarity, someone like Purdue or Jesse Rami in there for the Sharkies might be a pretty nice high upside play. But look, I think a lot of coaches are just going to keep it simple. Herbie and Ruben Garrett, you looking the same way?
Exactly the same way. And last week we talked about Herbie and the test of his matchup proofness, if that's a word that I can use. He went up against the Dragons, and I said that the Dragons have limited left centres to 19.5 GDS points, and he went out and scored 78.9. And I think you said you would eat your hat if he scored anything less than 19. So you've got a hat for another week. And he comes up this week against the Cowboys, who allow an average of 41. So they are a bit of an opportunity there for Farnworth to have a massive game. So he should carve them up. And then Garrick, it's just a simple play that it's one thing I don't like doing is loading up on a team that we think is going to have a big game. But when there's buys and Origin and everything else that's going on, I think it's just an easy play for Garrick. Like you said, the extra 3 points for every goal that he kicks, I think just makes that upside just too great. And we know we've seen what he can do if he gets a couple of tries under his belt as well. And that score quickly turns from a 50, 60 into 100 plus. So I don't want to miss out on that. And I think they're going to have a massive game. Like I said, Seabus Friday night should be unreal. So I think it's a pretty easy one. Those two, move on.
Just before we move on to onto the wingers, we've done this a few times where we absolutely talk up one team. They're going to kill it. We plug in about 3 or 4 of their outside backs, and it just goes completely pear-shaped. There's no possible way that Olakwatu, Garrick, Cherry Evans don't score well, is there?
Well, I mean, you could put your hat on the line again, I guess. if you, no, I can't see a world where that doesn't happen. I know
surely
in the season we said that they were going to have a big game against the Warriors, and the Warriors smacked them around the park. Then we said that, we loaded up on some Panthers players later in the season and they got smacked around the park. I think we did it with the Knights game as well. I am nervous. I'm always nervous, but I just can't see a world where the likes of DCE, Turbo, Garrick, Olakau'atu, and then even potentially Jason Saab on the end of all of that have a massive game against a Titans team that are looking pretty skinny.
Not impacted by Origin. Only Lehigh Hopewada out. Had a disappointing second half against the Knights last week. Plenty to play for against the depleted Titans pack. Green lights. Lock in those Manly players. Wingers. Now, we've got a bit of news this afternoon that one of those players on screen, there's a bit of uncertainty around whether or not he'll line up for his club on Sunday, and that's, of course, Jacob Kiraz. Wasn't he phenomenal in his return there on the weekend? He'd been out for a number of weeks through injury, but looked fantastic. I think he offloaded 6 or 8 times. He was looking to offload just about every single time he carted the ball up. He is moving into the centres this week. Well, that's where he was named. So there is some trepidation about starting him where he won't get those same amount of kick meters. But look, the news is that Brian To'o is still suffering with that hamstring injury, and he hasn't trained yet for the Blues. And they're sort of keeping him out until probably Saturday, and they'll give him a bit of a fitness test on the Saturday. And the reports are that Jacob Kiraz is the man called into camp. Now, we know the game's being played over in Perth. It's a pretty lengthy flight here from the east coast of Australia over to the west coast. If Jacob Kiraz has touched down in Perth or does touch down in Perth tomorrow as cover for To'o, we sort of got to wonder how long he might stay there for and if he'll be given the green light. So we don't know either way just yet, but we do know that there is a chance that he won't suit up on Sunday. Now, that game is going to be the last game of the round, but we should get some news prior to that Sunday. We might just need to be flexible in terms of thinking who we might be able to move him around to as soon as that news drops. And look, there's no better reminder than to get everyone jumping over to the GameDay Squad Discord server. Just jump onto Google, type that in, or go onto the GameDay Squad website and you can click the little Discord link. Dill's been doing a really good job posting team news in it 24 hours in advance and an hour in advance as well. So if we get some Kiraz news, we'll try to break that as soon as we can. But there's every chance that he doesn't suit up and then all of a sudden the winger position becomes a lot more interesting. 4 or 5 hours ago, it just seemed like Fletcher Sharp and Jacob Kiraz.
Yeah, and I guess for me, the big advice is that if you're still keen to have Kiraz on your side and you want to play 3 wingers with one of them being on the bench, I'd be putting Kiraz on the bench so that you've got the flexibility of an easy pivot to a centre or a fullback. If you keep him in the wing, there's very few options once you get to that Sunday game, and you've got to pick someone in that Rabbitohs Dogs game that you might not normally be looking at all. Although we've got Sean Walcott here who has suggested maybe Marcelo Montoya. I really do not like him as a player. And look, to be honest, I've never even thought about his name, so I've never looked up his stats to even consider him in contention. But if that's where we're going, then maybe that's the case. If you are keen to still play Kiraz and then have to pivot, Montoya could be an option for sure. But I think for me, there's probably an easier way about this, and that's just playing Fletcher Sharp and Asako. We've seen Asako really have a couple of decent games the last few weeks and had a massive one last week, obviously. And so he would be the clear pivot option if we get some news Saturday afternoon that Kiraz is staying in camp or even if he's not able to return in time for the game. So I think for me, Sharp continues to be a beacon of hope for the Knights and all the fans down at Newcastle. And probably all GDS coaches as well who continue to plug him into their winger spot when he's playing in the halves. And he's absolutely killing it, averaging 60 GDS points this season. He's the clear number 1 winger in the competition, and it's built off the back of those run meters, his tackles, and then the power and tackle breaks and his upside and tries. I think he's on 10 tries so far for the season. So, we know he can find the line. And if he doesn't, we still know he can score well through some of that base and power. So then, it'll be Asako for me. I think, up against the Cowboys, we've already talked about the vulnerability that they might have there. To add to that, they allow 40 points to right side wingers on average, whereas on the left side, they only allow 27. So I feel like the Dolphins will be looking to go right side majority of the time. to their wingers, and then obviously on the left to Farnworth as well. So I think there could be a big score coming for the Dolphins, up against the Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got a couple of stats here on Jermaine Asako and a reason why he could be a third winger for me. I'll have Jacob Carraz on the bench so that there is some flexibility. I could play a centre, a winger, or a fullback if he is ruled out. I'm sure we'll get some news more than an hour out from kickoff that he's not going to play. But worst comes to worst, and he is on my bench because I've started Fletcher Sharp and Jermaine Asako, is that I can swap him to a number of players. Shawnee Walcott's mentioned Harry Hayes. Although Harry Hayes is coming off the bench, he still saw 63 minutes last round. And look, he's been amazing. He's working tirelessly through the middle, and he's been showing that he can break tackles. He doesn't miss many tackles, and he can score a try or two as well. So he wouldn't be someone that I pivot to straight away. We've probably got some other options in a Jai Gray from the Bunnies, maybe even a Connor Tracy, who might score well against the Bunnies, who can see plenty of points to fullbacks as well. So this stage, I'm not running with a Manly fullback that I think you might talk about shortly. For me, it's the three wingers. It's Fletcher Sharp, it's Jacob Kiraz, and then it's that man, Jermaine Asako. Look, Cowboys-Dolphins matchup, I think we'll see plenty of points. Asako's been scoring plenty of tries recently and kicking a heap of goals. Now, the Cowboys are without Dearden and Robson and Jeremiah Nanai, but they're going to lose a lot with Robson and Dearden as their leaders, their experienced players, the guys that get their hands on the footy the most out of anyone else in that team. Look, Jermaine Asako loves playing the Cowboys, and he loves playing in Townsville as well. He scored 8 tries in his last 4 games against the Cowboys, and his last 2 starts up in Townsville, he scored a hat-trick. So 6 tries in his past 2 matches up in Townsville. Pretty tempting when the Dolphins are pretty much full strength. The Cowboys are without a number of their stars. He's already got a pretty nice track record there. He's kicking goals off the tee and scoring tries as of late. For me, he's a much better start than some sort of fringe fullback options that we might get into shortly.
Yeah, I think it's a great play. Just quickly, the 24-hour mail has come through for tomorrow night's game, and Corey Allen has been dropped from the Dragons side. Sagranis is coming into the centre, and I believe he'll be on debut in the centres there. So there's a bit of opportunity there for a young bloke, but then also probably a bit of opportunity for some of the Cronulla outside backs to do some damage there as well. So that is a potential watch, and have a look at what the makeup of that side is an hour before kickoff tomorrow. So I don't know why anyone would be, but if you were looking at someone like Corey Allen, you need to drop him out of your squad straight away. Based on what you said about Asako, I think I'll definitely play him. And then it just comes down to, do I leave Carraz at the bench, or do I just stick with that Tommy Turbo option? I just had a quick look at the latest, and 3 hours ago, it sounded like the New South Wales medical team was still confident that To'o will play, and they don't fly out till Sunday. So it could be just
right. Okay.
It could be an easy sort of get back to the squad for Carraz on that Sunday morning. So in terms of the Bulldogs, so we'll obviously keep up with that news as much as we can. But it sounds like they don't fly out till Sunday in terms of New South Wales, so that probably benefits Carraz, and there's probably definite keep him in your side opportunity, but just probably play him on the bench if you're going to play him just in case. I've got a potential pod, and again, this sort of smells of the Alex Johnston pod that I talked about a number of weeks ago, but it also, I'm not going to do it because I really don't want to have another Seagull in my side. But Jason Saab, we've already talked about the likelihood of the Seagulls putting on points, and the Titans have allowed almost 60 GDS points to right wingers this season per game. And this season with Turbo, Saab's averaged 40 points in GDS. Without Turbo, he's only averaging 19.6. So Turbo at the back obviously does a little bit of something, and Saab just seems to see a little bit more ball and potentially get over that line a little bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a big game from Jason Saab. I don't think I've got the cojones to play him this week on top of all the Manly players. But if you are struggling for some of those cards that we see on screen and you've got a Jason Saab, I think you could play him with a small bit of confidence that he's going to score more than 20 points.
Well, more than 50% of his games, he's gone sub 30. I thought he would have had a higher top score. It's only 60. Back in round 2, he had a 55 in round 1. So started the season absolutely on fire. But since then, just the one score over 40. Yep. And in 7 matches, 6 matches below, or 5 matches below 30. But it could be, it could just be that turbo factor, who has obviously the reason why Saab scored so well in round 1 and 2. We saw Manly use the ball on the right side of the field a lot more. It was typically the left winger in Manly that we used to load up on, because Turbo swept a lot more to the left and sort of created some space and put that left winger into a lot more space. But it was Jason Saab getting those benefits early on. And if Turbo's anywhere near full fitness, we've already said DCE, Hamolau Lakwatu, Ruben Garrick are going to have big games. There's no reason why Jason Saab can't as well. The only issue is you look at his numbers, he can go as low as 7 in 80 minutes. Yeah. And then there's so many 20s. There's a 15 as well. That just makes me ill looking at those numbers. But I'm sure he'll be played. He's a great pod. He's someone with a massive ceiling, but you've just got to know that, look, he can get you a sub 20. Even if the Sea Eagles score 40 points, there's every chance he can still get that sub 30-point score. Not for me. Certainly going to be some more brave people. But look, I don't mind it.
And I mean, if you compare him to someone like Muatalo, who we have up on the screen there, look, Ronnie Muatalo had a 15 in his first game this season. He's had an 18 and a 20 as well. So, it probably just goes back to what we always say about wingers being sort of boom or bust for majority of the players that we look at. I think Fletcher Sharp and Karaz and probably Isako's moving into that range where they probably have less bust games, and they're probably more consistent. Even Greggy Marju, to an extent, has that sort of boom or bust upside in him as well. And we've seen some low games from him when he doesn't have as many tackle breaks or doesn't have an offload or whatever it might be, a try. So I think, there's definite upside for all of those players, but there's also that massive downside of a really low score and a really low floor, because there's not a lot of work output that happens from the wing necessarily in some of those teams.
Sif Kanga and Mel are onto something, I think. Sif Kanga says Toto needs to have 4 cans of Coke so we can all make sure we play Karaz. And Mel suggests maybe 5 for normal game prep and that extra one to heal. Maybe we can find out where the New South Wales camp is and all chip in together and send a carton down or something and say, here you go, Bizza, go nuts. We want Karaz this week. Make it nice and easy for us. Dill, fullbacks. We're both pretty locked into 2 of them. It could be a week where I don't play a third.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. And like I said, I think my third, before we talk about the main 2, is probably going to be Tommy Turbo. And I'm still a little bit nervous. He still seems a little bit underdone. He's had a couple of weeks back and he's easing into it, but he's not quite his full fitness that we know we've seen in the past. And he's sort of a bit timid at times going into contact. So I'm still a little bit nervous, but we know that if he is at full fitness, we know what Turbo can do to sides. And we know, going back last season and the season before, we had so much hype around him being one of the best fullbacks, if not the best fullback in the competition. So it's just sort of a pick and hope that he's starting to get back to that full fitness. Also, I love to see that Turbo actually loves to rip apart the Titans. Since 2021, Turbo's played the Titans 4 times with a fantasy average of 75.5 points. So he seems to like to go off against the Titans, and I feel like this could be finally his breakout, his bounce back game for 2025, and just gets him back into the minds of all of the coaches with a pretty soft matchup against the Titans. Although there's always that nervousness when I'm playing 5 Manly players in a game where we expect them to win and win well. But yeah, there's still that option where we could play a third winger or even a third centre, depending on what the makeup of your side and what you're looking at. So that probably going to come down to a sort of a last minute 50-50 call from me. But at the moment, I'm leaning Turbo, but I could be convinced otherwise pretty easily, I think, for a better wing option if Karaz is good and potentially playing that Asako as my third.
It might be a matter of tuning into the telecast on TV nice and early and just getting plenty of camera shots of Turbo. If he's running around with no strapping, if he's moving freely, if he's showing a lot of agility, plenty of power, jumping to collect high balls in the warm-up. I think I'd be a lot more tempted to play him, given that we are expecting a pretty nice big game there from the Seagulls. But yeah, look, he hasn't been great. The stats back against the Titans are in our favour if we do decide to play him, but he just hasn't shown enough. And he came back for one game and then he was out for 2 or 3 more. And they said it was more just precautionary, but then it sort of dragged on and on. Is he still underdone? We don't know. Maybe that pre-game shot might tell us all we need to know. But if he's got his knee covered in strapping again, I think I'll safely put the up away and not force him into the team. But look, if he goes off, it's great for the game, great for Manly, and great for our game day squad teams, because he'll certainly be someone that would be in consideration moving forward. We've obviously got the bye week, which probably makes him a bit closer to selection. But when we've got a full complement of fullbacks to pick from, and if he's playing really good footy, then I can't wait till we have the fullback conversation in a couple of weeks' time once State of Origin's finished.
And don't get me wrong, if Lehigh Hopewade wasn't injured and Turbo was in the team, I think that would make a whole lot more sense, and I'd be definitely playing Turbo. I think it's the fact that it's just kind of worked out really well that Hopewade's been injured. He's out this week with the concussion, and so Turbo's been potentially rushed back into the side. That has me nervous, obviously. So yeah, if Hopewade was there, I think Turbo would almost be a definite play for me. But that's why I've got question marks. In terms of the other two, I think we've pretty similar on this, and that's Teddy and Drinky. I think Teddy's just a lock and load. And look, Sif Kanga, there you go. He said exactly that. I think he's stolen my thunder, because I was actually about to say some coaches refer to Drinky as Dreamwater. So you're all over it, Sif Kanga. You have got it. Yep, Teddy and Drinky. I think Teddy will just continue to do those Teddy things. He's the highest averaging fullback at the moment. And the thing I love about that, he's averaging 61 points or 61.3 points per game. However, he's only got 4 tries to his name. Compare that to the second best fullback in Pappy on 58 GDS points. He's got 12 tries. And then third is Hammer on 57.6 GDS points, and he's got 10 tries. So Teddy gets it done with everything else but that attacking upside. But we know he's got that attacking upside there as well. We know we've seen plenty of tries scored from him before, but it's just that work rate that he does with ball in hand, and that his ability to break tackles and even, set up tries that I really like from Teddy. And setting up tries is something that Drinky does as well. He's got the most try assists for all fullbacks, averaging at least 1 per game. And he also has the second most goals kicks for any fullback. So he's averaging 9 points off the boot per game as well. So we've already talked about the potential for high scoring games across the weekend. So, and if this Cowboys Dolphins is going to be another one, then I think Drinky just benefits from that.
Yeah, look, I think Teddy's a lock, and most coaches will look to play him as their number one fullback. He goes up a gear. He went up a gear last season when he was overlooked for Origin, and his 3 big bye round scores were above 70 and a big 98 point score, I think it was as well. So it's like he takes shoulders a bit more responsibility with a number of those forwards out. They're out again this year through their Origin commitments. So we expect massive things from Teddy. He wasn't amazing in the match earlier this season that was affected by State of Origin, but he still ran for 200 meters, still scored a try in a 55-point game. So look, he's reliable. Drinky has maybe a bit more of a ceiling with some of the goal kicking, but look, he's got a bit of a flaw as well. Teddy's still going to break tackles, plenty of runs. Drinky does have that 1 or 2 really low flaws, although he has been a bit more consistent this season. But yeah, look, the fullback position, pretty straightforward. Those two, Teddy and Dreamwater, and a bit of Turbo sprinkled in along some of Zarko. And I think a lot of teams might look pretty similar down the bottom end.
And that's, I guess, talking about Classic and us looking forward in terms of that Classic competition and even contender for those people playing this weekend. If there is someone like Tedesco where we know he's probably going to be in 95% of teams, there's an opportunity there. If you know that he's not going to be a pod, maybe you pod up by playing a higher rarity card there for Tedesco, where everyone's already going to get that base score, and you might just get 10, 15 points extra by playing, his gold card in contender, something like that. So there's an opportunity there to be a bit strategic as well, that you could pod up, I guess, with a player that is owned by many players or many coaches this week.
Yeah, you create the pod yourself out of someone that's already heavily owned. I like it. Yeah. Good advice. Yeah. We'll certainly look at some more strategy like that next week when our focus turns toward the the GDS Classic Cup. Alrighty, on screen is a bit of a look at our round 15 squads. A couple of differences down there in the bottom. You can see that Dill's gone for a different hooker. He's going JMK. He's sticking with Turbo and Hines at the moment, and Dill Lucas over my Olakau'atu, Cherry Evans, Azarko, and Blake Brayley. I think, we say it every week, that side on screen is probably going to be a lot different to actually what runs out. We're sort of opening the app every time we get a chance and fiddling around, making a few changes until we finally lock in on something that looks good to go. But yeah, fortunately, we can play across the 4 comps, and I'll certainly sprinkle a number of those guys you've got in gold there on your side across a few of mine, just to hedge, because I think they're great picks. We just obviously can't play them all. You're on a bit of a roll in the Brodown Showdown as well, Dill. Is that 2 on the trot for you?
Yeah, it could even be 3.
Unheard of.
I think
Could
maybe
even be
viewers might
3.
have to go back and watch to double check. It could be 3. I
Wow.
can't remember. I'm winning too much. I can't remember.
You got a lot of ground to make up still, trust me.
Yes, I do.
Alrighty, so what are you on? Spinning a wheel and seeing.
Yep, let's spin the wheel. As always, you can comment on our Brodown Showdown, whether you think my picks or Stu's picks are going to win. If you pick correctly and you've commented a name, then you go onto the wheel and could win some cards. So today we've got 5 people that picked me. Unfortunately, Mel has ditched me again and did not pick me. She picked Stu instead. So unfortunately, Mel's not here. But let's spin the wheel and see who's going to win a prize today. Lovely. It's our mate, Matty P. Unreal. He's been around plenty of times before. So we're going to, Stu's going to bring up the pack on screen in a moment. And
you got that?
This week, let me just get that up on screen. This week, because it is our round 15. Just waiting for that to come up.
Should be there now.
She doesn't like it today. There we go. Okay. So because it is our round 15 show, it is the 5th time we've spun the wheel, or 15th time we've spun the wheel. We have a unique 3-player pack to open today. As you can see on screen, Stu has already pre-opened. So let's jump into it. So for Matty P, I'm going to give him the card in the middle. So can we have a look at what that card is down the middle there, please?
It's a diamond card. Can you see that? Or are you lagging?
Yes, I can. Yep. Should be good now.
I'm going to hold off. Because it's a diamond card. Let's see. We're going to hold off on the diamond card. We'll see what the other 2 are. So it's a Trindle and an Isaac Fa'asua Mala'awe. Those cards are yours, Dill, if you want them. But the diamond card down the middle for Matty P. Haven't opened many diamond cards on stream, but it is
unreal. Thanks, mate.
Not too sure about the Sakuru, but could be a name of the future. Congrats, Matty. He's yours, and he could be someone that you hang on to for a while. And do we know much about Sakuru, Dill? I certainly don't.
Not really, no. But we might have to do some research there. Alrighty. Mate, I don't know what is happening with my stream tonight. I apologize. I'm bouncing in and out, but hopefully you've got me now.
Yep, I got you. Solomon Sakuru, Matty. Solomon Sakuru. He's only 21 years of age. So he's playing a bit of SG ball. He's a centre, so he's an outside back, pretty explosive by the looks of things. And Tigers are a team that's sort of on the up a little bit, and they're getting better each and every season. We could see Solomon Sakuru in first grade soon. All right, Brodown Showdown for round 15. Dill spun the wheel, and we've had to pick a half, a hooker, and a wing. So have a look at who our guesses are, who our predictions are, and get your Get your guesses in now. If you think Dill's selections of Jaden Campbell, Jerry Marshall King, and Fletcher Sharp are going to outscore mine in Cherry Evans, Reed Marnie, and Jermaine Zarko, comment Dill's name or comment mine, and you can comment that now live on the stream, or once this video has gone up on YouTube as well. Dill's in a bit of some hot form. Yep. I've got a bit of catching up to do over the last month or so.
I think you're still ahead about 9 or 10 to 4, I think. So I think I've got plenty of work to do ahead of me. But Shawnee Walcott, straight in. Thanks, mate. Everyone looks like they're pouring in for me. Love it. So, everyone is coming in for me. Unreal. Thank you.
Whoa. No, we've got Michael Fossey, who's...
Damn, I was hoping you missed it. No, good on you. Thanks, everybody, for commenting already. I'll make sure I get those down as well. There's plenty of opportunity post this show to be able to go back and watch the replay and be able to comment there as well.
Alrighty, well, that's it for the round 15 live preview show. Hopefully, we've talked you in a few potential pods. And hopefully we've given you a couple of ideas about some players you can plug in for some big scores. Good luck if you're going in the new contender competition. And make sure you get your classic squad sorted for the Classic Cup starting next week. Dill, next Wednesday will be the Queensland versus New South Wales Game 2 live preview show. That'll come a little bit earlier than usual, maybe a 6:30 p.m. kickoff rather than the 7. Plenty to chat about, all things Queensland versus New South Wales Game 2 and the must-win clash there for the Maroons. We want a little bit of time at the end to desperately jump on and make some last-minute changes, which never seem to work out anyway, so I'm not sure why we bother. But thanks again for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you next Wednesday for the Queensland versus New South Wales Game 2 live preview. Good luck this round. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you comment who you want for Brodown Showdown. Jump over to our YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Let's get that 100 subscribers for the 50th show next week. Let's do something special for it. All right. Thanks very much, Dill. Thanks, viewers. Good luck this round.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.